So now I'm going to show you guys how to do your blockers. Okay, so you need a lot of stuff for this. Okay, you need 2 of the long strips of white paper that I've got for you. So each person needs 2 of those. You need a square piece of paper. You need a roll of masking tape. You need a piece of mat board out of that X-Acto mat board or X-Acto board drawer in the classroom, so you need to get one of those. You need to have I would use one of the I really think the clear rulers in this situation work best, so you need a clear ruler, one that you can see the measurements really well for. You need a metal ruler just to use as a straight edge, so on the metal ruler it's not important that you can read the measurements on. And then you need a pen, an X-Acto blade, and a pencil. Any old pencil will do, okay? So I'm going to show you guys how to do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to work with the square. So go ahead and get the square piece. Bring this down. Alright, so on this, just to show you what it looks like, when it's all finished, it's going to look like this. So this is not the same blocker that we used for the oil pastel project, just because we're dealing with a different dimension, okay? And then our large blocker is going to, sorry, I zoomed out. Or zoomed in. Here's what the large blocker is going to look like, okay? So, similar to what we did with oil pastel, just different, because it's different projects, so that's what this is going to look like. So what we need to do, I do not have a template that has a 2-inch square on it, so we have to draw that square ourselves, okay? So this is going to end up being a 2-inch square. I'm going to show you how to use the ruler so that you know that these are 90-degree angles every time. So this is the part you really need to pay attention to, okay? So what you need to do is you want to take that clear ruler, and we have just, as you can see, we have just enough space to have a bit of a border here. So I'm not going to start here in the middle of my paper. I want to start up here. So what I'm going to do, to just get this started, I'm going to draw a 2-inch wide line. So from 0 to 2. Okay? So from 0 to 2. And I'll lower that a little bit so you can see how that line looks now that it's drawn. Give you guys all a chance to do that. Now, to make sure that we're making this next line at a 90-degree angle, you got to use the ruler. Take advantage of it. So I'm going to put this on its side now. So now the line that I drew is on the side. I'm going to take this ruler, and if you guys notice, and I'll pull this off a little bit, is that this 0 line, it goes all the way up and down on the ruler. Okay? So all I'm going to do is simply line that up so it's right on top of that line that I just drew. And as long as I have my line that I drew lined up with this straight line that goes from the 0 to the other side of the ruler, I will make a nice 90-degree angle here. So I'm going to now make a mark from 0 to 2 inches again. Right there. So it looks like that. Okay? And I'm going to keep doing that until I get all the way around. So again, I line up that line at the end of my ruler so it's right on top of the line that I drew. And then I'm going to draw my 2-inch wide line. I'm just going to keep going around in a circle like that. Now if I was using the metal ruler, just so you can see, all I would do with that is just make sure that it's lined up here like this, right up against that line that I just drew, and drew a 2-inch line. I like the acrylic rulers better because I can see through it. And I should end up, at the end, perfectly matched up. And I did. So there's my 2-inch square. And as you can see, I didn't exactly put mine in the middle, and that's fine. What's important is the space inside, not really what's on the outside. Okay? So I'll give you guys a minute to get your 2-inch square drawn. Alright, so the next step, guys, after you've got it drawn out, is to cut it. Okay, so this is where you need your mat board. You do not want to cut directly on top of the table because you don't want to cut through and to the table. So this is where the metal ruler comes into play. Okay, so use your metal ruler for this because if you use that acrylic one, and you use that as a guide for your X-Acto blade. The X-Acto blade actually cuts the plastic on these, and you'll just get caught. So you want to use a metal ruler. So what you're going to do, you guys will need to take turns. You want to line up your ruler to the edge you want to cut. And anytime I need to cut with an X-Acto blade a straight edge, I always use a metal ruler as a guide. And then you're just going to use that as a guide. And you just want to take it nice and slow. And you're just going to work your way all the way around. So again, just use that metal ruler as a guide. And that will ensure you're actually making a nice straight cut. Much better to do it this way than to try to do it without the ruler and get kind of a wavy line. So you guys can go ahead and start that and take turns using the ruler, the blades. Didn't quite get my corners. There we go. So that's what it should look like when you're finished. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay. So next thing, so after you cut this out, okay, so again, this is my finished one. This is the one that I just did for the demo. This piece right here you don't need, so this is going to go in the trash. This is the piece you actually need to keep, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to mark these measurements along the outside, okay? So I'm going to kind of move that board off the way. So again, we're going to, and if you look at this, we're going to mark every 1/2 inch. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. This is where I do believe you want to use a pen. If you're not too confident about making your marks correct the first time, then maybe you want to do it in pencil and then pen. But if you do it in pen, they stay put a lot better. If we do it in pencil, a lot of times they tend to wear off. So what I'm going to do, here, I'll do this with the metal ruler. It shows up a bit better. Guys, you need to listen. So I'm just going to start. I like to do this here kind of lined up like this. So I'll just put the ruler right underneath there. And I'm going to measure again mark every 1/2 inch. So at the 1/2 inch mark, 1 inch mark, and the 1.5 inch mark. Okay? And then I'm going to just kind of go around a big circle. Just want to make sure that everything is lined up. Because if it's not, your measurements will be off. So again, every 1/2 inch. So I'm going to mark 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and then 1.5 inch. Alright, so now I have it like that. But if you notice on this finished one that I have, I went ahead and took that middle mark, which is the 1 inch mark, and I made it bigger, just so that it's easier to see. So I'm just going to go through now and do that on here. So just take it and make that middle mark longer. I just feel like when this is sort of like looks different, it makes it easier for me to kind of line this up. It goes a lot faster. And then after you're finished doing that, then you want to write your name on this so you know which one is yours, because everybody's is going to look the same or should look the same. Okay? And I'm just going to go ahead, and you don't have to write this. I'm going to write this on here just because I'm probably going to use it as an example. Alright, so that's what your small blocker looks like. So I'll give you guys a minute or two to make those marks and get that done. And then the next step is to show you how to do the large blocker. Alright, the next step, guys, is to do the large blocker. So these are the things that you need. You need your 2 long strips of white paper that I've pre-cut for you. You need your gray paper that you have gridded out, a pen, and masking tape, okay? So when everything is all said and done, it should look like this when we're finished, okay? So, look like this. Alright, so, what I want you guys to do, I want you to take one of your strips, and I want you to put it on your project just like this, so it's lined up in this corner, and along this line, so it's lined up perfectly. Okay? So I've got it lined up here at the bottom of my grid and along the side of my grid. Then I want you to take the next piece of paper, I want you to put that right on top here, and again, line it up so it's perfectly lined up against this edge here and the bottom edge on your grid paper. And you got to be careful because sometimes you put that on top of there, it moves that paper. After you have it down perfectly, I want you to take a piece of tape. And again, make sure you've got things lined up perfectly before you start taping this down. Just moved it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape across the seam to hold them together. And then I'm just going to fold this over to the other side since I have extra. So do that like that, and then I'm going to flip it over and put tape on this too so it's just not flopping around. So I turned it over to the other side and taped this other seam also too. And just wrap my extra around the edge. Okay. So I'm done now. I'm going to move my gray paper away. So move your gray paper off to the side. I'm going to lower this. Having a hard time focusing. That looks better. Okay, so the next thing, I'm going to use the metal rule for this just so you guys can see. Now we need to mark our large blocker. Now it will look like this in the end, so if you guys look, kind of hard. I'm marking every ½ inch again, the same thing as my large blocker. All the way along, and this is on the inside. A lot of people make this mistake is that they don't put these measurements on the inside, they put them on the outside. It needs to be on the inside. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start with my blocker this way. You want to start your measurements at the corner. not over here, so you don't want to take your ruler and put it over here at the end. You want to start these measurements, start measuring off of the corner. And again, you want to make sure that this is lined up. And you are going to measure every ½ inch, or mark every ½ inch. And again, this needs to be very precise. You have to be very accurate. Do not go through this quickly. Don't make sloppy marks. If you make sloppy marks, you're going to throw your drawing off. So I'm just going to go all the way down here until I run out of room. Okay. So I measured every ½ inch, and I'm going to do the same thing on this part of the L. Now on this part of the L, I'm just going to kind of line it up with, let's see here, line it up with my 11 mark on my ruler. Okay, so once you got it lined up, then again, same thing on this side. Mark down every ½ inch. Take your time. And you do that until you run out of room. So now it looks like this. But, again, if you look at the one that I've already got finished, I went through, and I basically made every inch mark longer. So that's what I'm going to do now. So you're not going to start with the first mark, it's going to be the second mark. So you're basically going to make every inch mark longer. I'm going to do it on this side also too. And these long marks that I'm making, which is basically every inch, should match up to the grid lines that I drew on my photograph. And again, I think just having those like that, it just helps to see things more clear. And then the last step, put your name on it. Because again, everybody has the same template. So then when it's all said and done, wrong way. This is what your blockers should look like. Okay, now I'm just going to write here again, mark every ½ inch. Alright, so once you get that finished, you're done sort of with most of the prep work, and you're ready to move on to the next step.